Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. This podcast is where we focus on increasing your net profit and increasing your cash flow. Our guest today is serial author, Mike Michalowicz, good friend of mine. And I just want to say welcome to the show, Mike, and let me tell them a little bit about you.
Sure.
Mike is an entrepreneur behind 3 multi-million-dollar companies. He's the author of, let's see if I go this way, Profit First, Pumpkin Plan, Fix This Next, Get Different, and over there it's Clockwork, and then soon to come, All In. Mike is a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and regularly travels the globe as an entrepreneurial advocate. Welcome, Mike. I'm so glad to have you on our show today.
Oh, Diane, it's a joy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited that you have a brand new book coming up here pretty soon. In fact, I hopped on Amazon again today and it's still not out there quite yet.
Oh, it is. It's buried. You know, if you type in All In, that's the title of it. Mm-hmm. And then you put Mike, your best version of Michalowicz, you'll find it. There's a lot of books titled All In. So it's up there now. But you're right. The audio version won't be listed until about the launch day, but at least the hardcover is available for pre-order.
Because when I went out there, it said hardcover was a pre-order until January.
Oh yeah, it's a pre-order. Yeah, I'm sorry, it is a pre-order.
Okay.
You know what's crazy is, so the manuscript's done, everything is done. It just has to sit in the publishing machine, and so I'm itching to get it out because I honestly think it's my best work to date. But it's just got to wait till January.
Well, as one of your mastery members of your Profit First group,
yeah,
you've been teasing us with this book and bits and pieces from it for a year, maybe.
Yeah.
And I have just been like, come on, Mike, get this book out there so we can see it.
Yeah, what's interesting is, as a book for me, I've been looking at the averages. It's about 6, maybe even 7 years for me to produce a book. So the concept for All In started back in 2015 or so. And how it starts is I listen to my readership, my friends. You and I don't know if you remember, we did that train trip in Colorado where you and your husband were there. We were talking, and you mentioned something about teams, and I just make notes. And once it becomes a common thread that, you know, I need to hire, or I'm struggling retaining people or elevating the team, then I say, okay, there's enough demand for this from the community that I'm serving. I got to explore this. I then go through all my research. But the biggest part for me, and I think why it takes me so long to produce a book, is then the testing. So these concepts we tested in my businesses, and some work and some don't. And the ones that fail get removed, or if I comment them, I say, here's something not to do. And if something works, then I test it with a larger audience of folks I know, like you. I'll start introducing concepts. I'll get feedback. And then finally, I write the book. The writing process for All In's probably been the longest for me. It took me about a year and a half, almost 2 years to actually write the book. Usually it takes about a year for me to write a book. But I think, Diane, it contains profoundly unique ideas, strategies that are established but never used in business. And one last little element about this, how I get to them is I look at what's the standard protocol we follow and what the actual results are. As an example, with Profit First, you know this, we're told that profit's the bottom line, it comes last. But the data shows almost no one's profitable. So clearly it doesn't work. But when it comes to building teams, one thing we rely on is the interview process. Most businesses will go through interviews, remote and then ultimately in person if they do that. And yet the interview process has a very low success rate in finding qualified candidates that stick around and perform at a high level. In fact, many businesses, when they make the hire, it's because this is the best of the worst, is at least the feeling. I'm not saying they are. And when I hire a person in the beginning, because they're in the learning stage, they're really engaged. In the first 2 weeks to a month, they're better than sliced bread. But it's that next month when you realize, oh my God, they capped out very quickly. And 3 months in, it's like, I made a hiring mistake. So there's this lag time before we say, this was a mistake. So how do we, from day one, know we have someone that's capable and is going to serve the company and be a true top performer for us? So I threw out the interview process because that doesn't work. I found a new process, which I document in the book, among other things.
I'm excited to have this book come out because I will have to raise my hand. I did in the camera here, raise my hand and say, I have hired people that you thought would be great. And 2 to 3 months later, I'm like, what was I doing? How come I didn't see this? How come we didn't pick up on this during the interview?
Yeah.
And you're like, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, who showed up to work today? It's not the
What's-
person you thought you were hiring.
Correct. What's interesting is the first few months of a hire is about the degree of curiosity they're demonstrating. The 3 months and after for the rest of their life is how much thirst do they have for the business. And those are two different things. Curiosity means intrigue and interest. And it's normal, even as entrepreneurs ourselves, when we start a business in the very beginning, we're excited because the world's in front of us. We have to learn so much. So there's value in the learning, but then there has to be the application of that learning. And that's when we get into the grind. That's the hard part. Interviews show people's curiosity. So you naturally will see enthusiasm. They want to learn. This could be a good opportunity for them. This could be the next amazing thing. Then after we hit that few weeks or a few months process, now it's like, okay, now I'm in the grind. Now I kind of see what I'm responsible for. I need to do this over and over and over again. And that is where curiosity can no longer sustain it. It has to be a thirst, a love for what we're doing, an expectation of ourselves to perform at our highest level. And that's hard for most people. So most people will say, well, this is too hard. Let me find the next shiny object, the new job opportunity, or go somewhere else. And they start this loop, this 3-month loop. So there's a technique to get past that. We basically want to show people, we want to find people demonstrating their desire and thirst as soon as possible and get past the curiosity phase. So I'll give you a very practical technique. This is a technique used by some businesses, but not nearly enough. And that's why I reveal in this book, it needs to be used by everyone, but it's also very established in the athletics industry, the sports industry. What it is camps or workshops. And I'll give it by example, is probably the easiest way to explain it. I played sports in high school and college, and lacrosse specifically. I wasn't necessarily a good player, a great player, but I enjoyed the sport. During high school, I went to a camp, a college camp, a school called Hobart. It's in the Northeast. And when I went there, there was maybe 400 to 500 different campers, lacrosse players. The coaches were teaching us techniques, and I was improving my skills like everyone else was. And the coaches were tapping some people on the shoulder saying, hey, there's another field over here. Why don't you come here and practice your skills here? Well, it was actually an elevation of competition and practice. The more skilled players were being selected because they were demonstrating through their behavior, their capability. At the very end, a few students were tapping on the shoulder saying, you're really demonstrating great skills. Have you ever considered coming to Hobart? We'd love to have you as a student athlete here. I was not one of them, but some students were picked. But here's what's the most interesting part. Every single person went through that experience and came out better. We all improved, and the best people with the most thirst and desire were cherry picked. So I was like, oh my gosh, businesses can do this. Instead of interviewing people, which is really just a timing situation, you happen to be looking and someone happens to be looking too, and you match up, it's a shot in the dark. Instead, let's run a camp. So I'll give you an example because this is a real world, true example. Home Depot does this. Home Depot runs workshops or camps about building birdhouses. And you can come yourself and bring a child or whatever, and they'll show you how to build a birdhouse. And what's interesting is they're surely trying to ingratiate you with the brand. They want you thinking, Home Depot is an amazing place. I'll buy my supplies here. So there's a sales benefit and there's a brand affiliation benefit. But the hidden secret is there's Home Depot employees there that are observing and teaching, and their job is to tap some of the parents on the shoulder saying, you really showed a lot of interest and curiosity. You're helping out other parents here. You did a great job. You ever consider working at Home Depot? You'd be a great representative. So it's a recruiting platform. Domino's Pizza does this. I did it with a client of mine who had an accounting and bookkeeping firm. Her name is Tuesday P. Brooks, and she was struggling to find great bookkeepers. She ran a workshop. How she did it is she teamed up with a university outside the country in Ethiopia. And there's a university there. And she said that we'll have a 12-week certification program. Every student, there was 12 students that signed up, got better. At the end of it, she cherry picked 3 of them to be her employees or her best employees ever, because they showed the most desire and thirst. And the remaining 9 people didn't just flounder. They all got jobs. They all got opportunities because they were all improved. So in All In, I teach this concept of workshops. And it doesn't have to be 12 weeks. It can be 12 hours. It can be 12 minutes. You can do these short, brief workshops. But the goal is to elevate the group in its entirety and cherry pick the best fits for your business.
I have a friend who runs a tax practice in Maryland. She does this. She teaches a tax class over about 3 months or so. And then she'll have anywhere from 20 to 25 people come through her class, and she'll hire maybe 2
Amazing.
out of that
And
class. And she does
you
it
know what's so
every
interesting
year.
too is those people participating likely pay for that class.
They do.
So in interviewing, it's reversed. You can't tell people, pay me to be interviewed so I can interview you. You incur the cost of your time and so forth. So here you're getting compensated. The second thing is, I don't know that class, but it's likely they walk out with a certificate of accomplishment or completion, which means their credentials have improved regardless of who they work for in the future. They've been advanced. And that's why this is so great. In traditional interviewing, only the person that gets advanced is the person you hire. Everyone else sits out there and says, I don't know why I wasn't selected. It's ambiguous. It's unclear. And they can't go to the next prospective employer and say, yeah, the last job interview, they didn't choose me. I don't know why, but they didn't choose me. There's no benefit to that. But if they say, I went through this workshop, and here's this certificate of accomplishment I have, well, now there's some real value for them for their next opportunity.
That's really neat. I never thought of that for just normal, everyday run-of-the-mill kind of businesses.
Yeah, and it totally works. We have a dog groomer who does it. They wanted to get dog groomers. They put on a class saying, learn how to groom dogs. They said, bring your dog, but you'll groom someone else's. So they were seeing how they could handle other dogs, not just their own. But what's interesting too, is some of the pushback I got was, this is great for entry-level positions. Someone's never done bookkeeping before, or someone has never been a dog groomer. I need an advanced person. I need someone that's very skilled. A workshop won't work. And the reality is it absolutely works. You simply set prerequisites. So now I teach the advanced level class. I'll give another example. There was a preschool on the West Coast that they were looking for teachers to be what's called site directors. You teach a class, but you observe other classes and other locations to make sure that the standard is being met across the board. You need to be qualified as a capable teacher to get to the level of site director. So they ran a course saying, learn to be a site director. And the prerequisite is you must be an active preschool teacher, and you must have these certifications or qualifications. So all the applicants already were at the level of what they needed. They were actually looking for qualified preschool teachers who were looking to grow into site directors, but they needed people with those prerequisites. Here's my favorite part, and it's rooted in integrity, but it's also pretty powerful because you get a call upon people who aren't actively looking for jobs. They reached out to their competition, to all these different preschools, and said, we're doing site director classes. So the competition sent their preschool director or teachers there to learn this skill set. They get a certificate of accomplishment. At the end of this, out of the 15 or 20 teachers that went through the program, they cherry picked happened to be 2 people. They said, these people are ideal. They said, listen, you could be a site director for us. You show all this capability. We want you for this. And the current school that you're working with may have this position. So we invite you, go back to your current school. If that's what they're offering, you can be elevated there. If they're not, maybe this is a pathway for you. So they were integral in that the schools that sent the competition, who sent the people there, had the opportunity to retain their people. But these other schools in this case said, no, we're not looking for site directors. So they were stunting the growth of these individuals. So they both worked for the client that we worked with.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I love to see entrepreneurs do outside of the box type things.
Yeah. Yeah. And and the funny thing is it's more time efficient too. So it's outside the box. But now they ran one class. The site director class was over 2 days. So it was like a half day and a half day. It was a 4-hour. They did it in person. You don't have to. You can do it over Zoom. And so it was only 8 hours of teaching time. It was maybe about 2 hours of preparation time per day. So let's say 12 hours to get 15 people in there. Now, they could have done individual interviews, which would take maybe an hour per interview. So that's 15 hours right there, plus the consideration and the ranking of each person independently. So you have to kind of cross-reference and go back. You probably have to do second round interviews once you honed it down, probably another, say, 5 hours. So now up to 20 hours. Even with as low as 15 candidates, there's 20 hours in the traditional sense, and you don't know who the best person is. In the workshop, it was about 3/4 amount of the time spent, and you could see demonstratively who is the most engaged. Here's the key tip. When you run a workshop, look for curiosity in the beginning. That's people that just show interest, but you must seek out people with desire and thirst, the people who keep coming back with more questions, the people who show up and say, I can't wait to learn, the people who choose to sit in the front and they're most engaged. The people who want it usually will be the best by far.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that some of my home service businesses that are listening to this will jump on that idea as
I
they're
hope
trying to
so.
fill, yeah, they're trying to fill various positions in their companies.
Yeah. It's funny. My nephew is looking to be an electrician. It's a dream of his. He's struggling to figure out how to get a job, and he's kind of applying here and there. It's confusing for him. He's seeking out education. There is not a single electrician in this case running a electrical workshop. So what you could do is maybe on a new job site that you're working on, with the permission and the proper insurance, if that's necessary, do a skills class. And here's how you can solicit some people. The first people to talk to is always your customers. These people already know you and they benefit from you, and say, hey, we're actually going to be teaching what we do. Would you, or do you know someone that's interested? That is the best starting part of your network. The second part is your competition, which sounds crazy, because if I called my competition and said, I'm looking to hire someone, can you send your people? They would laugh me out of the room. But if I call upon my competition and say, hey, we're running a workshop, and this is what it's all about to elevate people, they may send them. And if I don't associate my name with it, I just, instead of saying it's, my business name, I just say this is an independent workshop I'm running, and I'm doing it in parallel with a adult education course or something like that. Now it feels a little softer and safer. People send it that way. And if you team up with, say, an adult education course in this case, you have the credibility of that institution behind it, that high school or that college backing, which adds more credibility to what you're doing.
Right. Well, I'm really hoping that we'll start seeing some workshops popping up across the country. Yes.
If there's any wood, if there's carpentry or something, I'm interested in that workshop, by the way.
Okay, we'll get you signed up. Mike's at the top of the list.
Thank you.
My husband loves to do woodwork, carpentry type stuff. So it's too bad we're on opposite ends of the country, or we'd have.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's got a great big massive shop. You guys can have fun out there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So what else do you have? Another concept from the book that you?
Yeah, for sure. So all in the core model, I call FASO. It rhymes with lasso. It's an acronym, FASO. It stands for fit, ability, safety, and ownership. So we talked about ability. Ability is when people show potential by going through these workshops, and interest, curiosity, desire is what we're looking for. Desire being the highest, or thirst, I should say, being the highest level. Fit is the very first component we need to look at in our business. And the lesson here is don't match talent to titles, match talent to tasks. So the traditional business model is a pyramid structure. I need a receptionist, that's a title. But the duties of receptionists may be greet people that walk in the front door. Doesn't happen as much anymore for many businesses, but maybe. Answer the phone. And when there's off time, be doing data entry and so forth. Well, you may find someone is very affable and very charismatic. They may be great at the phone and data and front, walk-ins, but they may stink at the data entry. Mm-hmm. What we try to look for is the person that matches all those things. And so it's a really hard fit. So what we want to do is actually break it down and say, I need to find someone that's just a very affable person, but instead of keeping them locked in just as a receptionist, say, where else do I need an affable, approachable person? Well, maybe my frontline sales, maybe my HR responsibilities inside the company. So now I have a person that does a little reception, a little bit of my frontline sales, and a little bit of my HR componentry. Remove the title. Just say, your responsibilities are these 5 or 6 tasks. But when we match up tasks to talents, people excel. So we have to break it down a new way. That's what's called fit. And one way to get started is if you look at an existing employee you have, or even yourself, write down all the tasks that you do right now and look at each task and say, for all these tasks I do, which ones could someone else within my organization already excel at just because they have the natural innate ability here? And start splintering or fractionalizing the titles. That's the key. Instead of having a pyramid now, it's more of like a web-like structure, people doing different things across the board, and titles disappear. In fact, in my own little office here, no one really has a title except the president of our company, just because Kelsey, who's our president, needs a title when facing outward to our customers. So, and everyone knows that she's the president, but she fills all different roles just like we all do. So that's fit. So we have fit, ability through workshops. The next one is safety. We have to set up an environment where people feel comfortable being their natural selves, that there won't be consequence. So one component is physical safety. That's necessary. If you have a environment where people feel their physical health is at risk because of whatever reason, people are going to not ever be able to perform at their top level and probably not even want to be there. I talk about a story called the Ghost Girls. It's a true story back around World War II of women that got terrible tumors because they were using radioactive material, but the employer tried to hide it. It actually became the inception of OSHA. They were using what's called radium, and it caused these horrible situations. Thank God society has been advanced because of OSHA and things like that, where employers are compelled to talk about safety requirements. But I think we have to be more than compelled. We have to be desirous to make the most safe environment, not just physically, but also emotionally and relationally. Can I really be my true self without a fear of consequence when I come to work? If my employee feels that they're one person at home and a different person at work, that's a problem for the employer, because that person at home who's their natural true self is not able to express themselves that way. So a lot of it just comes out of one-on-one dialogue. Our office here, every week, every employee has a one-on-one with the president of our company. That's actually one of our primary jobs. And just how are you feeling? What can we do to make the environment one that you flourish in? And there's a lot more to explain in the book, but we need to set up environments where people can express themselves naturally without a fear of criticism or retribution of any sort. The last component, this is perhaps my favorite, the O stands for ownership. Ownership is, I heard this line from an employee, from a business owner once saying, I wish my employees would act like me. I wish my employees would act like owners. And so the question was, how do you make someone act or feel like an owner and be really invested in the success of the company? And the realization was this, among other things, is that if I announce I want to make our company a $5 million company or $10 million company, wherever this aspiration is, if I set out these lofty goals for our organization, the truth is it's not a goal for the organization, it's a goal for the owner. And I'm just saying it's linked to the organization. Everyone has their own individual goals. So first thing we as owners have to realize is the goals we set are our goals, and they're noble and appropriate, but they're not the organization's goals. The organization's goals is to satisfy everyone's individual goals. That's what an organization does. It's a collection. So what we need to do as leaders of our organizations is meet with all of our employees and learn about their personal aspirations. I may want to do $5 million. Maybe that means something for my ego or for my lifestyle. But one of my colleagues here, they may want to buy their first house or maybe learn to speak a second language. They may have other dreams that are not consistent with mine. My job is to reveal them and then support their path in achieving those, not to give it to them. I'm not saying gift them a house. I'm simply saying keep that at the forefront and say, hey, you have a job here, and this job needs to support you in making that dream come true. And just to keep it the front discussion. Now we are walking arm in arm. So as an organization, everyone is locked in on achieving their own personal goals. And if we, the owners of the business, are supporting our team members achieving their own personal goals, well, inevitably, our team's going to support us in achieving our goal, which is what we call the corporate goal.
Right. I love that, because I know I have said that over the years. How do I get them to take ownership? How do I get them to take responsibility? I mean, my current team's amazing at that, but over the years, as you've hired those mishires, that it was just a job. They're just a butt in a seat. And
correct. And yeah, right. So what's so interesting in the book, I talk about how companies have turned their employees from someone who has just a job to taking ownership. And what the impetus was these business owners took a interest and made an effort to learn what that person wanted. If someone has just a job, the thing is that means they're doing this to create income to support something. We got to learn what that something is. Mm-hmm. Now, there's other reasons people may treat it as a job. They may not like or feel comfortable or safe with the people around them, emotionally safe or relationally safe. And we need to explore that. There is no question, not everyone is a fit, but there's a saying that only 5 or 10% of the population are A players. And I want to call nonsense on that. That is not true. My research indicates that everyone is an A player when in the right role, doing the right thing. And it may not be in our company. So everyone has A potential. Everyone is a rock star, but they have to be able to do what they desire and moving them toward the outcome they want. So we just need to research it out. And if we can't help them navigate toward the outcome they want, if we can't set up an environment where they are doing what they want, it's unlikely they're going to thrive. And then it's our responsibility to release them or hopefully maybe even direct them to where they can fulfill that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Okay, I have one zinger question for you, and I should have told you ahead of time and I forgot to.
Dang it.
Since we are all about profit and
Yeah,
increasing profit, and I know you know a little bit about that, what's a
absolutely.
unique or often missed profit leak that you see as you've talked to businesses over the years?
I think a common profit leak is I'm going to go with the increasing salaries because that's just the protocol. So essentially, I go to a lot of companies, and the company hasn't grown in revenue, hasn't grown in number of employees, but their expenses keep going up and the profit is flat. So I'm like, oh, the business isn't improving, but our expenses are growing. And the reason is they're increasing salaries and compensation representative of time, but not contribution. They say, well, you've been here for 3 years, so you're going to get your 10% raise, whatever. But the reality is we need to start measuring contribution. What's the impact people have? And without knowing that, it's arbitrary. So to correct this behavior, what I tell people is link people's performance to a specific outcome that will correlate to your profit and revenue in the organization. A salesperson, maybe it's the conversion of prospects into clients. Maybe it's cold calls. An administrative person, like an assistant who schedules your travel, maybe it's how many discounts are getting off the standard travel costs that you incur. Are they negotiating better terms? Are they finding a cheaper hotel to stay at? But link those metrics, that performance, to their compensation. And what you'll find is then people self-vet. The performers will continue to elevate and you can pay them and should accordingly. And people who can't perform those metrics will reveal themselves because they're not performing. Maybe you don't have a fit. Maybe you got to correct something in your organization, or perhaps you have to introduce them to opportunities outside your organization.
Thank you for sharing that. I love this list of unique profit leaks that we're coming up with.
Oh, that's
And
cool. I
someday
love that.
I will do something with it. It might be a future book for me. It might be something as I keeping a spreadsheet on all these different profit leaks that we're coming up with from our guests. So thank
Very
you, Mike,
smart.
for joining me on this episode. And where can people find out more about you if they'd like to dig into who is Mike Michalowicz?
Yeah, I would be honored. You can go to my website, which MikeMichalowicz.com is the official one, but Michalowicz is hard to spell. So the shortcut is Mike Motorbike, as in a motorcycle. It's a nickname from grade school. I never had a motorcycle, but nonetheless, it rhymed. So it's my only G-rated nickname. Go to MikeMotorbike.com. They'll bring you to my site. All the books we talk about here, including All In, I have free chapter downloads from there so you can explore it. Also, I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. You can get those articles for free. And I have a series of videos and blog posts I put up that I think will support anyone listening in on their entrepreneurial journey. MikeMotorbike.com.
Thank you, Mike. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. Remember, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. Go ahead and grab a free digital copy of my book, The Path to Profitability, which shares 9 profit boosting tactics that will transform your service business. Head on over to yourpathtoprofitbooks.com. Thank you again, Mike.
Thank you.